next guest is Scott Wilson. He's the president of Connecticut Citizens Defense League, and they've got a pretty big fight on their hands. What's going on, Scott?
Good evening, Mr. Noir.
So I've been reading news about a major price hike for gun owners in your state. So can you tell us about that?
Yes, the governor's budget proposal came out last week, and he has indicated that he is seeking to increase the cost of pistol permit renewals from $70 up to $300 for a 5-year pistol permit renewal.
That is that's brutally insane. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. This bothers me to no end. It just really does. So could you explain just the overall basis behind the pistol permit requirement as a whole for people who don't understand the way things work in Connecticut?
Sure. In Connecticut, typically, if you want to buy a handgun, you need to go through a safety course, NRA basic safety course. Then you need to submit fingerprints to your local issuing authority. You need a local permit to be able to obtain. Once you obtain that, then you're eligible to obtain the state permit. So really, it's a two-hoop process here in Connecticut, and they charge you on the local level, and then they charge you on the state level. And it was just 6 years ago that pistol permits were $35 in the state of Connecticut for the state-issued permit. So we're looking at a tenfold, about a tenfold increase in the cost of pistol permits in 6 years.
I don't understand how they're able to get away with that. I mean, we're talking about this is such a substantial increase in price. It's pretty much disrespectful and incredibly insulting at the same time. So what are they actually posing as the reason for why they decided to have this increase in price, or were they lying to us and telling us it's for?
Well, essentially, the state of Connecticut is in a downward fiscal spiral right now. That is, there's nobody that's going to disagree with that opinion.
Yeah.
So in order to make up for some of their failed policies of the past, they intend to try to put the burden on the backs of gun owners in the state of Connecticut. Now, they're looking at one end of it, which is what the numbers add up to, but they're not looking at the end of people that won't be able to afford permits anymore and that are going to simply let their permits lapse once they expire. They'll still be able to keep their handguns, but they won't be able to carry them legally out and about in public without them. And they're not looking at future gun owners that are yet to take up the interest in hobby of our hobby and our way of life, or ones that aren't old enough yet. So, and then there's the ammunition sales. If you're not buying a gun, then you're not buying ammunition. So they're losing out on sales tax revenue as well. If so, there's state of Connecticut's really not looking at the whole picture, and it's punitive. This is a punitive action because nowhere in the governor's budget did he call for increasing driver's license fees over quadruple like he is with pistol permits.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me because it's like, so in your mind, and I'm not talking about you, me, the governor, in his mind, he thinks it's okay. He wants to take the very people who actually will go out of their way to do things legally, though I think the law inherently is illegal. But he wants to punish them for doing the right thing, so to speak. And then make it incredibly harder for them to do the right thing. And then we'll turn around and even be the same governor to say, well, there are all these illegal guns in my state, and therefore we need to do something about that, and then have even more laws. How much of this do you honestly believe has anything to do with dealing with the deficit in budget versus some type of political agenda? There may be none, but what would your take be on that?
I would say the governor probably is of the mindset that he's killing two birds with one stone, so to speak, figure, where he can quantify some revenue streams for the state of Connecticut into the budget, and then he can also, it's been no secret over particularly the last 4 years, ever since the hook, that he is not a fan of individuals having the right to keep and bear arms. He is not a fan of gun owners in the state of Connecticut. And he's looking at the fact that he can probably take away guns from a lot of people and still make a lot of money up if he puts an exorbitant fee on top of everything.
But
now, this is... I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay, this is 4 years ago after Sandy Hook. We had a significant fight to keep black guns, AR-15s, guns that are now considered assault weapons or identified as assault weapons in the state of Connecticut. He had a big fight, and we had a big fight with the legislature to try to stop that law. Now that was, there's not as much enthusiasm, or the variety of gun owners simply do not have AR-15s per se, but
Yeah.
most people want a handgun for self-protection. This is a different fight. There's over 250,000 permit holders in the state of Connecticut, and that's a lot of people that are going to be very upset by this. And a lot of people who typically do not get involved in gun politics are going to have things to say, I would imagine, this time around.
Awesome. And I think that's great. I think he stepped on the ant pile, and I'm hoping that the ants start to rally. Now, with that being said, what are you guys doing about it?
Well, we have tomorrow. It all starts tomorrow with we've uncovered some language in one of the bills that indicate where the fee increases are going to come from. And the head of the Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection, Doris Shiro, will be there in Hartford at the Capitol to testify on the budget and on permits and fees. They did not indicate gun permits. They did not indicate fees for firearms. Mm-hmm. They just simply said permits and fees. And according to key legislators, this is where they slipped the language in, and we are going to be there to testify against that as best we can with the very short notice. We're talking about a day and a half's notice we've had to get the word out about this hearing. It starts there, and then it also goes to, we have a public event on Friday at the Capitol. It's a press conference where the NRA-ILA state liaison, Chris Kopacki, will be up in Connecticut. And NSSF, who's based in Connecticut, and of course our organization, CCDL, we will all be there to stand shoulder to shoulder with each other and explain how the governor's budget proposal is wrong. And we are also bringing people who are going to be sorely impacted by this budget if it goes through, that will not be able to afford their permits anymore. We're looking at single women that are on fixed incomes, handicapped, and some senior citizens that just won't be able to afford the cost increase, Mr. Noir.
Again, it's very interesting how anytime we start talking about gun control or gun control measures and so forth and so on, the only people that it affects are the people who probably need the guns the most. And there's always this tinge of elitism involved in all of these laws, because, like you pointed out, to someone like me, I mean, I think it's high. But what about the people who live in areas who can barely just buy a gun to begin with? They're looking to buy guns that are just cheap and affordable. And then on top of that, you want to charge something that almost costs the same price as another gun in order for them just to have the permit in order to carry it. I think it's despicable.
Well, when you look at some of the lower cost price guns some are, at least by my standards, acceptable to carry, you're looking at fees for the permit, and then you add in the NRA basic safety training course, and then the fingerprint fees. And by the time all is said and done, you're out the door for probably close to $1,000 before you're able to actually protect yourself with a gun if you need to, or go target shooting or whatever your thing.
Jesus Christ, and that's not even counting ammo.
It's not counting ammo.
Yeah, I just think this is just incredible.
And then that's a big revenue loss right to the.
Yeah, and I'd have to agree with you in terms of the governor's motivation behind it being twofold. Kill two birds with one stone. And I pointed out to people time and time again when we talk about the issues of gun control or gun control measures and this reasonable gun control measures, so to speak. They don't necessarily have to ban guns outright. They can get little laws passed here requiring permits for this, requiring permits for that, and then making it making things so complicated and so expensive that essentially owning a gun becomes prohibitive without actually calling it a ban. And so I think that's an incredibly insidious way of going about essentially a anti-gun ban.
Yeah, if you make something so cost prohibitive nobody can afford it, then you've accomplished your ends. And it's, we've all heard the terminology "death by 1,000 cuts." And,
absolutely.
Really, that's what it is. That is a good terminology, because creeping incrementalism is the other, of course, where they'll just keep nipping away and chipping away
until it's gone.
And before you know it, we're like Europe or some other.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you, Scott, for getting the word out there, and my best goes out to you guys, and keep the fight up. And if you need any help, let us know.
Thanks a lot, Colin. I want to also say this is my first time on your show, and I appreciate you having me on and representing our organization here in Connecticut.
Absolutely, man. Really appreciate it. You have a good one.
Thanks, sir.
Absolutely. Up next, the latest from Volkatransen. I can never say it correctly. Volkortsen Firearms. We'll be back.